Okay, let's talk about availability bias. One of the things that we have as a tendency in our life and our thinking is that we remember things at the beginning and the ends of lists, or the things that are particularly novel or unique, the way that they're introduced, or it's something maybe that connects to our prior knowledge, things that we know about from the past, and we connect a story or a life experience to it, and so we remember it. And there's something called availability bias, where when we connect to something, we tend to give it greater priority. We think it's a more important clue or a greater potential answer to a problem that we're addressing, simply because it's more front of mind for us. Welcome to availability bias, and it can be a challenge in our life, in our treasure hunting, literally and metaphorically. So let's talk about 5 ways that we can help address it, overcome it, reduce it, mitigate it. Keep in mind, as I've said in other videos, when we're talking about logical fallacies and cognitive biases, my personal approach is I'm not trying to entirely eradicate them from my thinking. I'm expecting and assuming that I will fall into cognitive biases all the time, or often, and that I will succumb to logical fallacies. So what I'm trying to do is to create ways for me to acknowledge them, to recognize them, to see them when they're starting to happen, and to find some ways to work my way through them. After all, we're talking about the pursuit of truth. One of the reasons why I'm captivated by the idea of modern day treasure hunts is treasure hunts are unforgiving. That the treasure is in some locations and not in others. It doesn't change according to our whims. It doesn't just change because we will it to be in another place. Therefore, using our best thinking, using good logic, this is a great training ground for life in many areas. As our modern era, this is a place where many people get caught up. We get very interested in modern society about subjective truth and about preferences and about things that we want to be true, and the treasure hunt works differently. Treasures are hidden in some places, not in other places. Clues lead to some places and not other places. And just because you want them to say something else or mean something else doesn't mean that they do. And the intent of the designer and the person who created the clues, the clue maker, matters. So availability bias, it's one of those issues, and we want to be aware of it. Availability bias, again, is when you are paying most attention to or giving the greatest priority to those things that are front of mind, usually at the beginning of a list, something that captured your attention. So here we go. Let's talk about the 5 ways that you can work your way through these. First one is, after your first guess or your first assumption or the thing you're paying attention to, force yourself to list at least 3 alternatives. So this is especially helpful when you're starting to develop a theory or a potential solution. Even if you think that's the one for sure, force yourself to come up with 3 really good possible alternatives, the best you possibly can. It's going to force your brain to kind of deal with a little bit of disequilibrium, a little bit of dissonance, a kind of internal civil war a bit. Challenge yourself. And it may lead you to affirm that first one in some way, but maybe it will be refined and improved through this process. Second thing is, keep a written log of all of the clues, not just the ones that you remember easily, or all the possible solutions or all the data points. So you want to write things down. And what that does is, when you sit down and you start trying to think about a problem or think about a metaphorical or literal treasure that you're seeking, then you start by scanning the full list, and maybe even start in different places, so that you can overcome that preferential bias toward 1 or 2 items, just because for some reason you've gravitated to it. Maybe because you discovered it, and so you have an emotional attachment to something you discovered, and there was an aha moment or something like that. So writing, listing things out, very powerful. And I've said this in other videos. It's incredible how simple processes like writing things down objectively without forcing your own opinions in it, and taking some time breaks, those simple strategies alone often help. Third one is, rate your ideas and on the basis of evidence that you have. and likelihood of success or whatever else it might be. You want to try to do this as objectively and rigorously as you can and really honestly rate the ideas. Try not to let your emotions just slide in, or I'm going to rate this one high because I like it or because I gravitate toward it. You're going to try to be as objective as possible because, again, keep in mind, you are truth seeking, not just trying to win over yourself or the universe to your opinions or your preferences. All right. The fourth one is when you're dealing with groups. So you're in a group meeting, you're in a social media group that's all trying to solve the same problem or solve the same clue or whatever else it might be. Ask yourself a simple question. Am I thinking critically, or am I just following the things that are easy to recall and the things that the group is highlighting or emphasizing? This is related to groupthink, which is another logical fallacy, a cognitive bias, but this is distinct because sometimes you're being bombarded with an idea in a group. It's being talked about so much that it becomes front of mind for you. So just because everyone's giving this idea a lot of attention does not necessarily make it the critical idea or the one that everything else should be sort of sifted through. Right? So am I thinking critically, or am I just kind of falling into the pattern of the group? And the group could be right, it could be wrong, but the point is you don't want to just follow something because the group is gravitated toward it, because it's novel, interesting, something like that. And then the fifth one, the fifth and final one is you want to regularly review overlooked clues. Things that you forgot could often unlock the solution to your problem or the next stage if you're in a literal and metaphorical treasure hunt. So that's why the list that I described before can be really helpful, but you want to pay attention to these overlooked items. Just because you're not interested in it or you don't pay attention to it doesn't make it less important in terms of the actual solution to the problem. That's one of the errors that people often make is, again, we gravitate toward what we like, what we want. We like using intuition a lot. It feels good. It feels almost magical or something like that. But once more, lots of problems and literal and metaphorical treasure hunts are unforgiving, and they don't bow to our will or preferences. We must conform ourselves and conform our minds to think in ways that lead us to the actual objective treasure or truth. And that's what this can help you with. Look forward to your comments. I hope you find it helpful.